Today is day one of doing interview questions every day until I improve my articulation. So essentially what I wanted to do was read for 30 minutes every single day, and I was like, what can I read every single day that's actually going to be useful to me? So I was like, why not read interview questions? So what I kind of done, I basically fed all my experience into ChatGPT. Then I basically been generating like batches of interview questions and getting it to give model answers based off my experience. Basically, more time it is a bit vague because I haven't given it a specific sector yet, but for now it's good enough. Like it's good enough for me to take something from every single answer and add that to my usual set of answers for interview questions. So yeah, I'm gonna just go through this. Basically just reading practice so I can just like practice articulating my words and like yeah, just get better at like communicating. So I'm just start now. So this is the 25th run. I've done 24 before this, but I didn't record them. So yeah, let's go. So this run is about decision making, personal standards, and quiet leadership in everyday moments, not in crisis mode, not final round drama. These are questions that reveal whether someone will be a solid and trustworthy day after day. All stories and framings are new within this run. Like that last line is just at the start of every single set because I wanted to make sure that it's giving me unique ways that I can frame my experience essentially. So yeah, question one, tell me about yourself. I see myself as someone who's shaped by everyday responsibility rather than standout moments. Across work, placements, leadership roles, and sport, I've learned that the most impact comes from how consistently you show up, how you communicate, how you handle pressure, and how seriously you take small decisions. I'm reflective by nature, disciplined in how I improve, and comfortable learning in environments when expectations are high. That's the foundation of how I work. Question 2. Tell me about a time you made a decision others didn't notice. During a busy placement, there were moments where tasks could be rushed to keep pace. I made a conscious decision to slow down slightly, double check details, and prioritize accuracy even though it wasn't visible or praised. The result was that nothing went wrong, and that was the success. That experience reinforced for me that good judgment often looks invisible, but it's what keeps systems working properly. Another thing I like about these questions as well, just like a quick aside, is that I like the way it kind of structures it as there's always like a key takeaway of every experience. So like that's something that I would actually look to adopt, not necessarily the level of detail, because I do feel like it could be better in terms of the storytelling to actually get the interviewers to see where you've kind of come from and your specific journey to make you stand out. But I do like the way it structures most of the answers. But yeah, anyway, question 3. Describe a time you had to adjust your communication style. I had to do this during service roles where different colleagues responded very differently under pressure. With some people being directed, with some people being direct, well, hold on. Oh yeah, another thing I need to do as well is that every time I stumble in a sentence, I'm just gonna restart that whole sentence just so I can get in a better habit of like reading a bit slower and not sacrificing how clear what I'm saying comes across. So I need to build that habit essentially. So with some people, I'm just starting to start. I had to do to describe a time you had to adjust your communication style. I had to do this during a service role. I had to do this during service roles where different colleagues responded very differently under pressure. With some people, being direct worked well. With others, it increased tension. I adjusted by becoming more aware of tone, timing, and how messages landed rather than just what I was saying. That adjustment improved teamwork and taught me that effective communication is situational, not fixed. Question 4. Tell me about a time you had to keep standards high when others were tired. This came up in a team sports environment during a demanding training period. As fatigue set in, effort and focus dropped. Rather than pushing verbally, I maintained, I maintained as fatigue set in, effort and focus dropped. Rather than pushing verbally, I maintained intensity myself and encouraged consistency through behavior. That steadiness helped prevent standards from slipping and reminded me that leadership often shows most energy. Or hold on. That steadiness helped prevent standards from slipping and reminded me that leadership often shows most when energy is low, not when motivation is high. Question 5. What's a weakness you've only recognized recently? I've recently recognized that I can be overly self-critical after small mistakes. While reflection is useful, I noticed that dwelling too long didn't improve performance. I've been working on extracting the lesson, then moving forward more quickly. That balance has helped me stay both accountable and resilient. Question 6. What motivates you on an ordinary day? On ordinary days, I'm motivated by maintaining my own standards. I care about doing things properly even when there's no spotlight or pressure. That consistency gives me confidence that I'll perform well when things do become demanding. It's a quiet form of motivation, but it's reliable. Question 7. Tell me about the time you had to support a team without taking over. In a group setting where one person was underperforming, I resisted the urge to compensate by doing more myself. Instead, I supported them through encouragement and clarity, while still holding my own role to a high standard. That approach preserved team balance and reinforced that support doesn't mean control. Question 8. What do you think you're still developing? I'm still developing my ability to balance confidence with patience. I'm comfortable taking responsibility, but I'm also learning to respect the learning curve in new environments. Holding that balance deliberately is something I'm continuing to work on. I see that as a strength in development rather than a flaw. Okay, I'm just generating the next batch now. But yeah, I just want to get into I want to get to the stage where I'm so familiar with the structure of how to answer interview questions that should someone ask even just a variant or something completely new, I can kind of stitch together all these questions that I've kind of answered previously to form a better answer than I would have done. It's kind of like exposure therapy, but for interview questions. Right, so run 26. This run is about first day credibility, authority without seniority, and how you handle mistakes in real time. Exactly what interviewers probe when they're picturing you actually starting the role. All scenarios and framings are new within this run. Cool. Question 1. Tell me about yourself. I see myself as someone who earns trust through how I operate day to day. Across work, healthcare placements, leadership roles, and sports, I've learned that credibility comes from consistency rather than confidence. I focus on understanding expectations, acting responsibly, and improving deliberately. That approach helps me integrate quickly into new environments and contribute in a way that's reliable rather than disruptive. Question 2. Imagine it's your first week here. How do you approach it? I'm actually going to sort through it. In my first week, my priority would be understanding standards before trying to add value. From experience in placements and work environments, I've learned that listening carefully, observing how decisions are made, and asking the right questions early prevents mistakes later. Once I understand expectations, I contribute proactively within my scope. That balance helps me build trust quickly without overstepping. Question 3. Tell me about a time you made a mistake and had to address it immediately. During a service role, I realized mid-task that I'd misunderstood parts of a process. Rather than pushing through and hoping it wouldn't matter, I stopped, clarified the issue with a colleague, and corrected it straight away. It was uncomfortable, but it prevented a larger problem. That experience reinforced that addressing mistakes early is always less costly than hiding them. Yeah, another thing I like about the way these are structured is that they make it very easy to insert your own like personal experience into there. So say like you actually have a specific mistake you made, you just insert that as 1 to 2 sentences, then the kind of messaging is still the same. Like you still react in the same way, but it's just that you put it more into a story and you kind of just use your own like personal experience rather than making it vague like they've done here. Question 4. How do you influence people when you don't have authority? I influence through consistency and behavior rather than direction. In team sports and work settings, I've found that staying calm, maintaining standards, and supporting others quietly often shifts group behavior more effectively than instructions. When people see reliability over time, influence tends to follow naturally. Question 6. Tell me about a time you had to manage uncertainty on the spot. This happened during a placement when instructions weren't immediately available and decisions still had to be made. I focused on what I knew for certain: safety, my limits, and clear communication. I acted conservatively and escalated where appropriate. That approach allowed progress without unnecessary risk and reinforced my ability to function responsibly in ambiguity. Question 6. What's a strength that would show up quickly if we hired you? One strength that would show up quickly is reliability. I'm consistent in preparation, communication, and follow through. That makes me someone others can depend on early, even before I'm fully experienced. Over time, that reliability creates space for deeper contribution. Question 7. What's a weakness that might show up early? Early on, I may take time to fully calibrate before speaking confidently. I prefer understanding context rather than guessing. I'm aware of that tendency and work to balance it by asking questions early while still being thoughtful. That adjustment period shortens quickly once expectations are clear. Question 8. What tells you you're doing a good job? I know I'm doing a good job when people trust me with responsibility, whether that's being relied on under pressure or included more actively in decisions. Trust is the signal I value most. It tells me I'm contributing in a way that's genuinely useful, not just visible. Alright, cool. It's time for the next batch to be generated. But yeah, I do find that through doing this, it actually does give me a lot of variation in terms of questions, which I've just never seen before. So yeah, that's another reason I do like it. But yeah, if you guys want the prompts, I can always just put it in the Google and paste it for you guys. But yeah, then you know, but you do need to, I think the most important part is prompting it with your experience, because like, the more specifics you prompt it with, the better it can actually make these stories, because it's basing it off of real stuff rather than you just telling you did something and then you kind of have to speculate what you would have to do in that sort of like role. So yeah, that's like my 2 cents. But, yeah. Here is from 27. This one focuses on high stakes judgment, conflicts with authority, and what you do when something genuinely goes wrong. The question interviewers ask when they're assessing risk, not potential. These answers show accountability without panic. All scenarios are new within this run. Question 1. Tell me about yourself. I'm someone who takes responsibility seriously, especially when outcomes affect other people. Across healthcare placements, work environments, leadership roles, and sport, I've learned that composure and judgment matter more than quick reactions. I'm deliberate in how I assess situations, communicate early, and reflect on outcomes. That mindset has shaped how I operate under pressure and how I continue to improve. Question 2. Imagine you've made a serious mistake. What do you do? On the front of this question, because it's getting pretty warm around me. Alright, cool. Question 2. Imagine you've made a serious mistake. What do you do? My first step would be to stabilize the situation rather than defend myself. From experience in healthcare and professional settings, I've learned that acknowledging the issue early, understanding the impact, and escalating appropriately prevents further harm. I'd be transparent about what's happened, focus on correcting it, and reflect on how to prevent it happening again. I see mistakes as something to manage responsibility, not hide. Question 3. Tell me about the time you disagreed with someone senior to you. This happened during a placement when I was unsure about a routine approach being used. Instead of challenging it directly, I made sure I understood the reasoning. I then raised my concern as a question, focusing on safety rather than opinion. Even though the decision didn't change, even though the decision didn't change, the discussion was constructive. That experience taught me how to navigate hierarchy while still acting responsibly. Question 4. How do you handle conflict when you can't avoid it? I focus on clarity and timing rather than emotion. In team environments, I found that conflict escalates when people feel unheard. I try to understand perspectives first, then address the issue calmly and directly. That approach doesn't eliminate conflict, but keeps it productive and prevents it from becoming personal. Question 5. Tell me about a time pressure tempted you to cut corners. During a busy placement, workload pressure made it tempting to move faster than I was comfortable with. I chose to slow down slightly and double check key details, even though it added short-term friction. The outcome was that nothing went wrong, which mattered more than speed. That moment reinforced for me that pressure is when standards matter most. I'm actually really tired. Right, let's finish this. Question 6. What's a risk you actively manage in yourself? A risk I manage is being overly self-reliant. In demanding environments, I sometimes default to handling things independently. I've learned that communicating earlier and involving others improves outcomes and reduces unnecessary strain. Being aware of that tendency helps me work more effectively within teams. Question 7. What would your manager need to know to work well with you? They need to know that I value clarity and standards. I perform best when expectations are clear and feedback is honest. I'm comfortable taking responsibility and I respond well to guidance, especially early on. If communication is open, I integrate quickly and contribute reliably. Yeah, I need to drink some water. Question 8. What's something you'd never compromise on at work? I would not I wouldn't compromise on honesty about my limits. I wouldn't compromise on honesty about my limits. If I'm unsure or something is outside my scope, I'd rather pause and escalate rather if I'm unsure or something is outside my scope, I'd rather pause and escalate rather than pretend if I'm unsure about something, if I'm unsure or something is outside my scope, I'd rather pause and escalate than pretend confidence. That That principle has guided me across healthcare, work, and team environments. It's how I protect outcomes and maintain trust. Alright, well, let's generate the next batch of interview questions. Alright, 10 more minutes. Here is run 28. This run is crisis mode. Situations where things unravel, pressure spikes, and there's no clean solution. Interviewers use these to see whether you stabilize chaos or become part of it. The answers show containment, judgment, and leadership under stress. All scenarios are new within this run. I'm so tired. Question 1. Tell me about yourself. I'm someone who becomes more deliberate when things start going wrong. Across healthcare placements, work environments, leadership roles, and sport, I've learned that pressure is where habits show. Across healthcare placements, work environments, leadership roles, and sport, I've learned that pressure is where habits show. I slow situations down, prioritize what actually matters, and focus on preventing problems from escalating. That approach helps me stay useful when conditions are unpredictable rather than needing everything to be controlled. I'm so sorry, I lost my second. That approach helps me stay useful when conditions are unpredictable rather than needing everything to be controlled. Question 2. Tell me about the time everything didn't go to plan. One example was during a service role when unexpected issues compounded during a busy period. Rather than trying to fix everything at once, I focused on stabilizing the basics, clear communication, prioritizing immediate needs, and supporting colleagues who were stretched. Once things were steady, we worked through the remaining issues. That experience taught me that in crisis moments, containment comes before optimization. Question 3. What do you do when multiple problems demand attention at once? I triage rather than react. In high pressure environments, I've learned to identify what carries the most risk if left unattended. I addressed that first. Community clearly didn't know about what's being deferred and reassess continuously. Yeah, my brain is moving so slow. I'm so sad. I'm just starting with question 3 again. What do you do when multiple problems demand attention at once? I triage rather than react. In high pressure environments, I've learned to identify what carries the most risk if left unattended. I address that first. Communication. Okay, I'll say that I can't agree. But this is what I need to practice. Alright, so I triage rather than react. In high pressure environments, I've learned to identify what carries the most risk if left unattended. I address that first, communicate early about what's being deferred, and reassess continuously. That structured approach prevents overwhelm and helps teams move forward methodically instead of emotionally. Question 4. Tell me about a time you had to protect others under pressure. This came up during a healthcare placement workload pressure began affecting focus. I made a conscious effort to slow interaction slightly, double checking key details and support teammates who were here. I made a conscious effort to slow interaction slightly, double check key details and support teammates who were close to rushing. It wasn't about admit. Yeah, this is what happens when you read from the side. I made a conscious effort to slow interactions slightly, double check key details, and support teammates who were close to rushing. It wasn't about heroics, just about keeping standards intact. That moment reinforced that protecting others often means maintaining calm rather than taking charge loudly. Question 5. What's the first thing you don't do in a crisis? I don't rush to assign blame or prove competence. That experience, I don't rush to assign blame or prove competency. From experience, that usually escalates tension and distracts from From experience, that usually escalates tension and distracts from solving the problem. I focus instead on facts, the next steps, and clear communication. That restraint helps keep situations productive rather than personal. Question 6. Tell me about a time pressure exposed a weakness. Under pressure, I've noticed a tendency to internalize responsibility rather than share it. In demanding situations, I initially tried to manage too much alone. Over time, I realized that communicating earlier and delegating appropriately improved outcomes and reduced risk. Recognizing its weakness helped me become more effective and recognizing that weakness helps me become more effective in team-based crises. Question 7. How do you regain control after a crisis? Question 7. How do you regain control over a crisis? Yeah, my brain is so sad. I feel like I'm just thinking out of sleep. Once immediate issues are contained, in shift to reflection and learning, I review what's happened, what signals were missed. Once immediate issues are contained, I shift reflection to learning. I review that Alright, let's just finish this round. How do you regain control after a crisis? Once immediate issues are contained, I shift to reflection and learning. I review what's happened, what signals were missed, and what could prevent recurrence. That process helps turn disruption into improvement rather than just relief that it's over. It's how I ensure the same crises don't repeat itself. It's how I ensure the same crisis doesn't repeat itself. Question 8. Why should we trust you in high pressure situations? Because I don't confuse urgency with effectiveness. Across environments where mistakes differ, Question 8. Why should we trust you in high position situations? Because I don't confuse urgency with effectiveness. Across environments where mistakes matter, I've shown that I stay calm, prioritize well, and act Across environments where mistakes matter, I've shown that I can stay calm, prioritize well, and act within my limits while still being purposeful. But I'm sorry, again after I focus as well. Question 8. Why should we trust you in high pressure situations? Because I don't confuse urgency with effectiveness. Across placements where mistakes matter, I've shown that I stay calm, prioritize well, and act within my limits while still being proactive. In high pressure situations, I focus on making things better, not slower. Finally, that's it done. Like, to be honest, there are going to be some like pauses in there just because I was so tired. Like, I need to get built pretty soon. But yeah, I'm happy I've done it. I'm gonna just keep doing this every single day just to improve my articulation. Just because I do feel like reading every single day is really going to help me get to that goal. So that's what I'm going to do. And I just chosen this as a topic just because I can kill two birds in one stone. I can prepare for interviews and I can improve my articulation at the same time. So yeah, see you back again tomorrow.